Hello, Prosperivarians. The best school has come to stay in the city of Calabar. It is called Beryl International School. Take advantage of this opportunity now.
Tell me the best school, Beryl is the best. Tell me the best school.
Students, welcome to Beryl International Schools. I'll be introducing you to our online lessons today, and we do have biology for SS1 students. Biology for SS1 students. And our topic today will be differences between food web and food chain. Yes, your guess is correct. I did give you assignment based on this topic, and just one person had submitted, and it keeps me wondering if it's just one person who watched the video online as to be able to do the assignment. Please, I need all of you to carry out your assignments and try to submit them in school. Okay, so during the course of this lesson, we are going to learn how to define trophic level. We're going to state the differences between food chain and food web. We're also going to explain the pyramid of number with regards to food chain. We're also going to state or explain the pyramids of energy. Pyramids of energy. Okay, so let's jump into the first objective of the day, which is to explain the meaning or to define trophic level. So, trophic level is defined as the feeding level or each stage in a food chain or food web. This is to say that you can either call it a trophic level or a feeding level. So if you don't want to call it trophic level, you can call it what? Feeding level. It means the same thing. So the feeding level here, or the trophic level here, is the stage in every food chain or in every food web. Trophic level is also the number of links by which food energy is transferred from producers. Producers, if you remember, they are the autotrophs. You call them producers or autotrophs or plants. They are the producers to final consumers. Who are the consumers? You can also call them what? The heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are the consumers. You can also call them animals. Okay, so now let's look at the second objective here, which is to state the differences between food chain and food web. But before we do that, let's take a listen. Let us take a listen to understand what a food chain and a food web is all about, so we'll be able to state the differences. Now, a food chain is the feeding relationship involving the transfer of energy through food from producers, that's the autotrophs, to consumers, the heterotroph or heterotrophy. Now, do not forget, I once told you the difference between heterotroph and heterotrophy and autotrophs and autotrophy. I told you autotrophy is the process by which certain organisms, especially plants, do manufacture or produce their food through a process or through the sunlight, and that process is called photosynthesis. So that is when you're referring to autotrophy. But if you don't say autotrophs, autotrophs refers to those organisms. Take it again. Autotrophy is the process, and autotroph here refers to those organisms. So anywhere you see producers, take note that they are also what? Autotrophs or autotrophy or plants. And anywhere you also see consumers, take note that they are heterotrophs or heterotrophy, like I told you. Here, heterotrophy is the process by which certain organisms cannot manufacture or produce their own food, but they do depend on ready-made food or produced food from the plants to survive. So anywhere you see consumers, take note that it is simply referring to what? Heterotrophs or animals. Okay, now let us look at the food web. Food web is the complex feeding relationship among organisms in the same environment with two or more interrelated food chain. Now let us take this back again. Food chain here has to do with the feeding relationship involving the transfer of energy through food. Transfer of energy through food from the producers to the consumers, while the food web has to do with the complex relationship among organisms. You know when something is complex, you know what that means. The complex relationship among organisms. If you don't know what complex means, please check this word in your dictionary so you understand better. Among organisms in the same environment with two or more interrelated food chain. And okay, hence the differences between food chain and food web includes dash. Roman figure 1. We now have here a tabular form, food chain and food web. In food chain, now I want to state the differences. In food chain, organisms have lesser chance of survival. Organisms have lesser chance of survival in food chain. While in food web, organisms have greater chances or greater chance of survival. Now, Roman figure 2. Linear feeding relationship is applied. You know when something is linear, it's being friendly. So a friendly feeding relationship is applied in food chain. But in food web, the opposite is the direct opposite. In food web, a complex feeding relationship is applied. Now over to food chain, Roman figure 3. It involves fewer organisms. Very few organisms take part in food chain feeding relationship. But in food web, it involves many organisms. Roman figure 4. In food chain, it involves one food chain. And in food web, it involves two or more food chains. Okay, let's take a listen to the pyramids of numbers. Third objective here, which is pyramid of numbers. But before we go down into pyramid of numbers, which has to do with the diagrammatic representation of numbers, of the progressive decrease in numbers of organisms along the food chain. Let us first look at the definition of pyramid of numbers. Now, pyramid of number refers to the number of individual organisms at each trophic level, which decreases progressively from the first to last trophic level in the food chain. Pyramid on its own. Pyramid is the diagrammatic representation of food chain in which producers, remember the producers once again, from the base and the carnivores. You know what carnivores are when we talked about animal nutrition. Carnivores from the apex. Producers, that is the plant or the autotrophs, from the base, from the ground level, and carnivores at the apex, that is from the top. Okay, now let us look at this before we continue. Let's look at this. I will explain this later, but just take a look at this. And this is a diagram. This is what we call pyramid of number. And if you closely look at this, you see that we have a decrease in the number of organisms. Why is it so? Because for grasses we have 40. For grasshoppers we have 12. Lizards we have 5. And hawks, you know what the hawk is? We have 2. So we'll come back to this, but first let me introduce you to what will make you understand this diagram better. And let's take a look at this. In a food chain or food web, there are relative numbers of organisms at different trophic levels. Normally, the number of organisms decreases progressively from the first to the last trophic level. For example, grasses to grasshoppers, like what we have here. Grasses to grasshoppers. Let's take a look again. Lizards to hawks. And we also have here what? Lizard to hawk. Let's continue. The number of grasses eaten by grasshoppers is greater than the grasshoppers themselves. And let us also look at this. The number, you said what? The number of grasses eaten by grasshoppers is greater than the grasshoppers themselves. So see the number of grasses we have here, 40. and it is greater than the number of grasshoppers, 12. And yet, these 12 grasshoppers can consume or can eat these 40 grasses. Hope you're seeing that. We're trying to look at the decrease. The decrease in the number of organisms here. So we have 40 grasses, but they can be eaten by just 12 grasshoppers. And what happens? It means the number of grasses eaten by grasshoppers is greater. Grasses here is greater, 40, and grasshoppers 12. Let me take that again. The number of grasses eaten by grasshoppers is greater than the grasshoppers, while the number of grasshoppers eaten by the lizard is also greater than the number of lizards. And finally, the number of lizards eaten by the hawk is also greater than the number of hawks. So let's take a look at this now. The number of grasses eaten by grasshoppers is greater than the grasshopper. Now the number of grasshopper eaten by lizards is greater than the lizards. And the number of lizards eaten by the hawks is also greater than the hawk. So what happened? What can you observe here? Okay, let's go back to this. From this explanation, one discovers that there is a progressive decrease in the number of organisms from the first to last trophic level. Therefore, the diagrammatic representation of this progressive decrease is the number of organisms along the food chain, and this is usually called what? Pyramid of number. So can we take it back again so you understand better? Now, this is the pyramid of number, because pyramid here has to do with the diagrammatic representation. This is what we have here. Pyramid is the diagrammatic representation of food chain, in which producers from the base, see producers here, and carnivores from the apex or the top. And now, what is this telling us? That there is a decrease in the number of organisms. So for you to see that there is a progressive decrease, you understand that we have 40 grasses here, 12 grasshoppers, 5 lizards, and 2 hawks. Now, the number of grasses eaten by grasshoppers is greater than the grasshopper itself. And the number of grasshoppers eaten by lizards is also greater than the lizards. And also the number of lizards eaten by the hawk is also greater than the hawk itself. And that is why we say that from this explanation, one discovers that there is a progressive decrease in the number of organisms which are ranging from the first year to the last trophic level. Don't forget, again, we define what the trophic level is. Okay, now let us explain the pyramid of energy. Let us now look at the fourth objective, which is the pyramid of energy. Now, this is the amount of energy present in the living organisms at the different trophic levels of food chain. In other words, the pyramid of energy represents the progressive decrease in energy from the first trophic level to the last trophic level in a food chain or a food web. So now if you look at this, you're going to see the progressive decrease in energy. Now we're still going to use the same terrestrial habitats terrestrial habitats. And there are organisms, for example, where we do have the grasses, the grasshoppers. Now we are introducing toads to it, lizard, and hawks. Now, you agree with me that energy is being measured in what? The SI unit of energy is what? In joules. So now, we have grasses here having the energy of 500 joules. We have grasshoppers here having the energy of 300 joules. Toads having the energy of 100 joules. Lizards having the energy of 20 joules, and hawk having the energy of 5 joules. Before I come back to this to explain to your understanding, we have to consider this first. Now, just like the pyramid of number, that is what we treated earlier. Just like the pyramid of number, the producers at the first trophic level contains most of the energy. Now, who is the producer here? Grasses. This is the producer. So the producer contains more energy or most of the energy than the rest of them. Okay, the pyramid. Okay, the primary consumers have lesser energy, while the secondary and tertiary consumers have the least energy. Now let's look at this. These are the producers, or this is the producer with the greatest amount of energy, 500 joules. The primary organisms here, the primary one now have what? 300 joules. The secondary and tertiary, that's how it follows suit. Now, just like the pyramid of numbers, the producers from the base once again of the pyramid, while the tertiary consumers are the apex. The tertiary consumer, like the hubs, are the apex. Now, energy therefore decreases from the base of the pyramid to the apex. So the energy here decreases from the base to the apex. Why is it so? Remember what I told you when we were doing a pyramid of numbers, that when we had 40 grasses here being consumed by just 12 grasshoppers. 12 grasshoppers being consumed by just a few number of lizards. Few number of hawks now consumed by a greater number of lizards. So, in order for you to understand this better, I will need you to do this assignment for me. In other words, I also need you to carry out this research for me. Do this little research work for me and submit as soon as possible. Now, what I want you to do for me is explain food chain with example from aquatic and terrestrial habitats. Now, I've given you an example of terrestrial habitats here before, but I still need to give me using other organisms. You can borrow from mine, but also give me examples from what? Aquatic animals or aquatic organisms as well. And then write an explanatory note or write explanatory notes with the aid of a diagram on pyramid of number and pyramid of energy with regards to this. Just like when we give you the diagram here, explain the pyramid of number or pyramid of energy, we have to give you a note here to explain what is right here, to explain how we have the decrease in energy or the decrease in the number of the organisms. So if you look at this, you see we have decrease in energy because what? The organisms here lose their energy from the base to the apex, which is the hub, from producers to the consumers. Okay, hope to see your assignment, and if you do have any question, please pen it down and submit alongside with your assignment. So from next class or from our next lesson, we'll begin to answer those questions of yours before we continue. Bye for now, until next time.